when Michelle was trying to find the through line, the thread connecting the parts of this service, she joked to me, "I guess it's just Organ Sunday," knowing that I would be talking about sexuality and religion. Sexuality and religion. For so many people on our planet, these are like oil and water. Things never to be mixed, repelling each other. For many, it is even worse. To be a good Christian, to be a good Muslim, to be a good Buddhist means for so many to be a good religious person, to reject all or part of a sexual life. But of course, we know that's not the whole story. We need only listen to a few lines of Rumi or Hafiz, a tale or two of Krishna, or even these first few lines of the Song of Songs to know that there is another story to tell about religion and sex. Solomon's Song of Songs. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. For your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the young women love you. Take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers. This Song of Songs, an ancient erotic love poem held in Jewish and Christian scriptures, part of the canon of literature that gives us our bedrock notions of paradise that we have been discussing all this month. The first of those stories, of course, from that book of Genesis, the story of Eden, of paradise, which comes from the Sumerian myths. The people in Sumer would talk about paradise as a place where the goodness of everyday life was shared by all. The blessings and goodness of everyday life, including sexual pleasure. That these were the things that the gods would do in paradise. In their book, The Meaning of the Bible, What the Jewish Scriptures and Christian Old Testament Can Teach Us, authors Douglas Knight and Amy Jill Levine argue that in one interpretation of the Genesis story, Eden can be recovered, at least for a time, in an act of love between adults who are together and not ashamed and who have an intimacy that is not shared with the rest of the world. Eden, paradise, can be recovered, at least for a time, in an act of love between adults. Turns out, Unitarian Universalists have been proclaiming this good news for a while now. In the 1970s, we developed a curriculum called About Your Sexuality, AYS, that was pioneering in giving adolescents access to accurate information about human sexuality. Later in the 1990s, we partnered with the United Church of Christ to develop Our Whole Lives. For those of you who are not familiar with it, Our Whole Lives, or OWL as it's called, is an lifespan comprehensive sexuality education curriculum with 6 components for age groups from kindergarten through adulthood. Each segment is age appropriate and emphasizes the values of accurate information, communication, justice, and sexual health. It's not just a series of lectures. The learning is engaged and experiential. Group reflection is a critical part of each lesson. Participants learn in a safe and supported environment how to talk about sexuality and to consider the consequences of unsafe behaviors for themselves and others. Time after time, adults who grew up in a Unitarian Universalist congregation have told me that AYS or OWL was the thing they valued most about growing up UU. That this transformational experience gave them a foundational knowing that their sexuality is a wonderful part of their lives and their spirituality. A knowing that too many in our culture do not have and are not given by their religious communities. One of the assumptions of OWL is that parents are the primary sexuality educators of their children. It's a key for OWL's values, but there's several significant challenges involved with this approach, not the least being that most teens would rather be tortured than listen to their parents talk about sex. This is the case no matter how much parents want to give their children the information. But a bigger problem is that, in fact, most parents are uncomfortable talking to their children about sex. Often, this is because the parent was raised in a community or in a context where sex was not talked about or even regarded as shameful. This is clear to anyone who attends a parent orientation session for any of the OWL classes. In those sessions, we ask everyone, raise your hand if you received a good sexuality education at home or at school. In a group of 15 or 20, 1 or 2 hands go up. Let's see how this group does. Raise your hand if you got a good sexuality education at home or at school. Too small a handful. Thank you. Is it possible to give your child a good, comprehensive sexuality education if you never got one yourself? Can parents provide the most recent medically accurate information available? Perhaps some can, but many parents want some support. They want to know that their child is being taught by a person who is respectful, knowledgeable, and cares about their child. So, what better place to learn about sexuality than in church? In the context of our Unitarian Universalist principles and values, with attention to the worth we place on human dignity, justice, and inclusiveness. Now, if any of you are starting to think about those purposes and principles that we have and digging around in your pocket guide that I'm sure you all carry around, that for the one that says sexuality, don't bother, it's not mentioned. But the Reverend Bonnie DeLotte, who is the minister of our Napa congregation and trains OWL teachers in this area. I've been trained twice by her and also owe her a great deal of thanks for some of the content of this sermon. Invites us to think about how our principles can apply to sexuality by suggesting the game that some people play with fortune cookies. Do you know the game I'm talking about? I see some smiles already. Now keep in mind, this is an adult game to play only with people you know very well. What you do is add "in bed" to the end of any fortune cookie. This comes out something like, make the best use of your time today, in bed. Or, you are about to get a big surprise, in bed. Now, we know that sexuality is about much more than what happens in bed, but go with it for a minute. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person in bed. It may sound funny, but what it translates to in our whole lives is that everyone is entitled to their own attitudes and beliefs about sexuality, and that many forms of sexual expression are valid and honored. Justice, equity, and compassion might translate to the idea that we are all entitled to information about sexual health. In our whole lives, a healthy sexual relationship is defined very specifically as one that is consensual, non-exploitative, mutually pleasurable, safe, developmentally appropriate, respectful, and based on mutual expectation and caring. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning in bed means that we are called to express our sexuality in ways that enhance human wholeness and fulfillment. We are called to express love, commitment, delight, and pleasure while making responsible sexual choices. And it means our spiritual journeys need not wait outside the bedroom door. Okay, one more, just humor me. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all means that we value and honor the sexuality of people of all genders, races, income levels, ages, backgrounds, physical, mental abilities, and sexual orientations. In our whole lives, we learn that Unitarian Universalist principles and values are more than just abstractions. Our principles hold us to certain standards of responsibility and respect for ourselves and others out in the world and at home in bed. OWL does educate about the plumbing. For our kindergarten and first grade class that's happening right now, the one I was just teaching with Paul and Lottie a few minutes ago, that means teaching the kids the names of their body parts, real names for all the parts. And for the middle schoolers, in one of their first lessons, it means using a random assortment of art supplies to create 3D models of internal and external organs. Pipe cleaners, balloons, popsicle sticks, cotton balls become detailed representations of male and female genitalia. But beyond the plumbing, OWL delves into the deeper issues of values, emotions, beliefs, and experiences that surround sexuality. The OWL model uses 5 circles of sexuality to address the topics. The first is the one that you'll get in schools if the school does a good job. It's sexual health and reproduction. This is the care and maintenance of the sex and reproductive organs. It's factual information, physiology and anatomy, intercourse. But that's just the first. The second circle of sexuality is sensuality. The awareness, acceptance of, and comfort with one's own body. Physiological and psychological enjoyment of one's own body and the bodies of others. The topics of lessons from this circle include body image and the human sexual response cycle, skin hunger and fantasy. The third circle is intimacy, the ability and need to experience emotional closeness to another human being and have it returned, caring, sharing, risk-taking and vulnerability, self-disclosure and trust. The fourth circle is sexual identity, the development of the idea of who someone is sexually, including gender expression, sexual orientation. And the fifth circle is sexualization, the more dangerous zone where the use of sexuality is to influence, control, or to manipulate others. This is the circle that holds sexuality and power. And while it involves more harmless things like flirting and seduction, it also includes topics like rape and incest, sexual harassment, and withholding sex. It can be a realm of excitement and fulfillment, but also of pain and abuse. Too many of us have had these sorts of experiences. That is why there was a global movement last Valentine's Day. My partner and I stumbled onto it accidentally. We were up in Idlewild, which is a little mountain town in Southern California. It's very touristy and surrounded by pines, and the snow is melting this time of year, but still around. All you really do there is go around from cute little shop to cute little shop and eat nice food and go on hikes in the woods. And there, in the center of town, as we stumbled down the path, is a group of maybe 50 or so, mostly older women, but a few men and young folks there too, circling around the back of a Subaru that's got a big speaker in it with a microphone attached. They've got the words to the 1 Billion Rising song that Eve Ensler spread along with many others around the world this Valentine's Day. And they were saying it all together. A song in protest against the violence done against women, the sexual and gender-based violence too common all around our world. 1 Billion Rising. We watched them dance down the main drag of Idlewild, just one spot among so many around the world. This is one of the big reasons why the work of comprehensive sexuality education is so critical. UUs, empowered by OWL, become voices reclaiming sexuality as a part of the original blessing of what it means to be a human and what it means to have been given paradise here on this earth. This is fundamental to our faith, that we are good, that it is a blessing we were born. Ibrahim Farajage, the provost of Star King School for the Ministry, often shares a powerful litany on the importance of our bodies in our spiritual lives. Each line resounds, "Bodies matter." So I echo him as I assure you, bodies are good. Soft, newborn baby bodies are good. Growing children's bodies are good. Awkward, curious teenager bodies are good. Adult bodies are good. Gray-haired bodies are good. Wrinkly bodies are good. Overweight bodies are good. Thin bodies are good. Bodies in wheelchairs are good. Bodies living with HIV and AIDS are good. Bodies struggling with cancer are good. Amputated bodies are good. Male bodies and female bodies are good. Intersex bodies and transgender bodies are good. Gay and lesbian and bisexual bodies are good. Straight bodies are good. Queer bodies of all kinds are good. Brown, yellow, black, white, red, cinnamon, hazel, peach, ebony, ochre bodies. Bodies of every color are good. It is indeed as the psalmist sings in the 4th verse of that Song of Songs. How beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful. Your eyes behind your veil are doves. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from the hills of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep just shorn, coming up from the washing. Each has its twin. Not one of them is alone. Your lips are like a scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is lovely. Your temples behind your veil are like the halves of a pomegranate. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built with courses of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. Your breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of incense. You are altogether beautiful, my darling. There is no flaw in you. You are altogether beautiful, my darlings. There is no flaw in you. Amen, and blessed be.